The library director broke a rule that has lasted for 11 years for her. 6 weeks later, when the council chamber doors opened and 20 strangers walked in behind her, he finally understood why some rules exist to be. Welcome back to Acts of Kindness Stories, where real kindness writes the best stories. There are moments in life when everything you thought you understood about success gets rewritten in a single afternoon. For Garrett Pemberton, that moment came on a Tuesday in October when he found a homeless woman sleeping in the biography section of his library, and made a choice that would cost him his reputation, his career, and eventually give him back his soul. Her name was Iris Caldwell, and she was holding a book about Abraham Lincoln like it was the only warm thing left in the world. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it really began, to the place where silence holds more stories than sound ever could. The Riverside Public Library sat on the corner of Maple and 7th, a red brick fortress built in 1952 that smelled perpetually of old paper and lemon polish. Garrett Pemberton had been its director for 11 years. 47 years old, methodical, respected, he ran the library like a ship. Every book catalogued, every policy enforced, every rule upheld without exception. He believed in order, in structure, in the idea that systems, when followed correctly, kept chaos at bay. He lived alone in a tidy apartment 3 blocks away. No wife. His daughter Claire was 22 and studying architecture in Boston. They spoke every Sunday at 7 p.m. like clockwork. Garrett's life was predictable, and he'd convinced himself that predictability was the same thing as peace. On that particular Tuesday, the autumn sun filtered through the tall windows, casting golden stripes across the worn carpet. The library was quiet except for the soft rustle of pages and the occasional cough from the reading tables. Garrett was reviewing circulation reports in his office when Dolores Hathaway, the 61-year-old reference librarian, knocked on his door. "Garrett, there's a situation in nonfiction," she said, her voice careful. He looked up. "What kind of situation?" "A woman. She's been here since we opened." Well, you should see for yourself." Garrett followed her through the stacks. The biography section stretched along the back wall, lined with books about presidents and poets and people who'd changed the world. And there, curled up on the floor between shelves marked LM and NP, was a woman in her late 50s. Her coat was tattered, her hair gray and tangled. Her shoes had holes in them. And in her hands, open to page 73, was a biography of Abraham Lincoln. She wasn't asleep. She was reading. Her lips moved silently as her finger traced the words. Dolores whispered, "She's been here for hours. Should I call security?" Garrett stood there, policy running through his mind like code. Library rules were clear. No loitering, no sleeping, no prolonged stays without purpose. He'd enforced those rules 100 times. But something about the way this woman held that book, like it mattered, like it was oxygen, stopped him cold. "Give me a moment," he said. He approached slowly, the way you might approach something fragile. "Excuse me, ma'am?" She looked up. Her eyes were tired but sharp. Intelligent. The kind of eyes that had seen too much and still chose to see more. "Yes," she said. "I'm Garrett Pemberton. I'm the director here. I noticed you've been reading for quite some time." She closed the book carefully like it was sacred. "I'm sorry. Am I breaking a rule?" "Not exactly," he said. "But we do have policies about extended visits. Is there something I can help you find?" She hesitated. "I was a history teacher. 23 years. I lost my job 2 years ago. Then my apartment. Then, well, everything else. But I still love Lincoln. He lost everything too, you know." And he kept going. Garrett felt something crack open in his chest. "What's your name?" "Iris," she said. "Iris Caldwell." He glanced at Dolores, then back at Iris. "Stay as long as you need," he said. "Read whatever you want." Dolores blinked. "Garrett." "It's fine," he said. "She's a patron." Over the next 3 weeks, Iris returned every day. She sat in the same spot, reading biography after biography. She never caused trouble. Never asked for anything. He just read. And slowly, quietly, she became part of the library's rhythm. Garrett found himself checking on her, bringing her coffee from the staff room, leaving a sandwich on the shelf beside her when he thought no one was looking. He told himself it was just good customer service. But deep down he knew it was something else. Something that felt like remembering how to be human. Then Vernon Archer showed up. Vernon Archer was a city councilman. 63 years old, silver-haired, the kind of man who believed power was something you wore like cologne. He walked into the library one Thursday afternoon, looked around like he owned the place and made a beeline for Garrett's office. "Pemberton," he said, not bothering to sit. "We have a problem." Garrett looked up from his desk. "What problem?" "You're running a homeless shelter," Vernon said. "I've had 3 complaints this week. Patrons say there's a woman camping out in your stacks. Sleeping. Smelling. Scaring families." "She's not camping out," Garrett said evenly. "She's reading. She's loitering. And you're enabling it. She's a patron with as much right to be here as anyone else." Vernon leaned forward, palms flat on the desk. "I don't care what rights you think she has. I care about optics. This library is funded by taxpayer dollars. If people think it's become a flop house, funding gets cut. Understand?" Garrett met his stare. "I understand you're uncomfortable with compassion." Vernon's jaw tightened. "Fix it. Or I will." He left. The door clicked shut. And Garrett sat there staring at his hands, wondering when doing the right thing had started to feel so dangerous. 2 days later, Iris didn't show up. Garrett waited. Checked the biography section 3 times. Nothing. By closing time, worry gnawed at him like hunger. He found her that night outside the library, sitting on the cold concrete steps, shivering under a thin blanket. Rain was coming. The sky had that heavy, bruised look that promised a storm. "Iris," he said, sitting beside her. "Why didn't you come in?" She looked at him with tired eyes. "A man came by this morning. Security uniform. Said I wasn't welcome anymore. Said the director had changed the policy." Garrett's stomach dropped. "I didn't change anything." "It's all right," she said. "I understand. I shouldn't have stayed so long." "No," Garrett said firmly. "You stay as long as you need. That's my policy. And I'm the director." She smiled faintly. "You're going to get in trouble." "Probably," he said. "But some trouble's worth it." He stood, offered his hand. "Come on. Let's get you inside." The next morning, Garrett called an emergency staff meeting. 7 people sat in the conference room. Dolores, 2 part-time clerks, the youth services coordinator, the facilities manager, and Troy Gwynn, a 29-year-old community outreach librarian with a good heart and better instincts. Garrett stood at the head of the table. "I want to start a program," he said. "A partnership with the shelters. We provide space, resources, and dignity. They provide referrals. We call it open door hours." Dolores frowned. "Garrett, the council won't approve that." "Then we don't ask for approval," he said. "We just do it." Troy leaned forward. "I'm in. What do you need?" "Help. Time. And the courage to believe that a library should serve everyone, not just the people who make us comfortable." They voted. It was unanimous. Within a month, open door hours became real. Every morning from 8 to noon, the library opened its doors not just to readers, but to people who needed warmth, safety, and a place to exist without judgment. Volunteers brought donated coats. Social workers set up a table near the circulation desk. And Iris? She became a tutor. Helped kids with their history homework. Told them stories about Lincoln and Harriet Tubman and people who'd fought for something bigger than themselves. But Vernon Archer wasn't finished. 6 weeks into the program, Garrett received a letter. Official city letterhead. The library board had called a hearing. The charge: misuse of public funds and violation of building code occupancy limits. The penalty: termination and possible closure of the Open Door program. The hearing was held on a cold Monday in December. The council chambers were packed. Vernon sat at the head of the table, arms folded, wearing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Garrett sat alone at the defendant's table, his hands steady but his heart pounding. Vernon began. "Mr. Pemberton, you've been accused of running an unauthorized program that endangers public safety and violates city ordinances. How do you respond?" Garrett stood. "I respond by saying that libraries have always been sanctuaries. We don't turn people away because they're poor or homeless or struggling. We open doors. We offer dignity. We serve the whole community, not just the comfortable parts of it." Vernon scoffed. "This isn't about dignity. It's about liability. What happens when someone gets hurt? When a child feels unsafe? You're risking everything for people who don't even belong there." "They do belong there," Garrett said quietly. "Everyone belongs there. A library isn't a building. It's a promise. And I refuse to break that promise just because it's inconvenient." Vernon leaned back. "Then you leave us no choice. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending further review. Open door hours is terminated." The room went silent. Garrett nodded slowly. He gathered his papers, stood and walked toward the door. But before he reached it, another voice rang out. "Wait." Iris Caldwell stood at the back of the room. She was wearing a donated coat, her hair pulled back, her face calm but resolute. Beside her stood 20 other people. Men and women who'd found shelter in the library, kids who'd been tutored, volunteers who'd given their time. "My name is Iris Caldwell," she said. "I was a history teacher for 23 years. I lost everything. But I didn't lose my voice. And I'm here to tell you that Garrett Pemberton saved my life. Not with money. Not with pity. With respect. He gave me a place to exist. And because of him I'm working again. Teaching again. Living again." One by one others spoke. A veteran who'd found job training resources. A single mother who'd used the computers to apply for housing. A teenager who'd been mentored by Troy and was now applying to college. Vernon shifted uncomfortably. The other council members exchanged glances. Finally, an older councilwoman named Helen Crane spoke. "Mr. Archer, I move to reinstate Mr. Pemberton and approve open door hours as an official city program." "All in favor?" 5 hands went up. Vernon's did not. But it didn't matter. The vote passed. Garrett exhaled. Iris smiled. And for the first time in weeks the weight lifted. 3 months later the library had changed. Not in structure but in spirit. The Open Door program had expanded. Other libraries across the state were adopting it. And Iris? She'd found an apartment through a housing program, secured a part-time teaching position and still came to the library every week. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. One evening as Garrett locked up, he found a note tucked inside the biography of Abraham Lincoln. It was in Iris's handwriting. "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible. You reminded me that mercy isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing we can do. Iris." Garrett folded the note carefully and slipped it into his wallet. He thought about his daughter Claire, who'd called him last week and said, "Dad, I heard about what you did. I'm so proud of you." He thought about Vernon Archer, who'd resigned from the council 2 weeks ago, citing personal reasons. He thought about Dolores and Troy and all the people who'd chosen kindness when the easy choice was indifference. And he thought about the truth he'd learned in that biography section on a Tuesday in October. That the world doesn't change because of grand gestures. It changes because of small ones. Because someone stops. Because someone sees. Because someone decides that mercy matters more than rules. The belief that compassion isn't a luxury, it's a responsibility. And the belief that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is open a door and say, "You're welcome here." Kindness shows mercy. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that every person you pass has a story worth honoring, then I ask you to do something. Hit the like button. Subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment below and tell me about a time someone opened a door for you when you needed it most. Or tell me about a time you became that open door for someone else. Because these stories aren't just mine. They're ours. And the more we share them, the more we remember what it means to be human. The next time you walk past someone society has decided doesn't belong, I hope you'll remember Garrett and Iris. Because mercy doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up. And when it does, the whole world becomes a little more like home. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next story.